The shadow of death sometimes falls in the places least expected, right amidst the vibrant light of everyday life. On a spring morning in 2019, in the peaceful town of Shaker Heights, Ohio, a horrific tragedy quietly unfolded, shattering the inherent tranquility of this affluent suburban neighborhood. No one could have imagined that behind the doors of an exemplary home, where laughter and chatter usually echoed daily, lay a cold and cruel crime so heinous it would send shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned detectives. The story begins with the unusual death of a woman beloved by the entire town, unraveling a series of dark secrets that would gradually come to light. The victim in this tragic case was 48-year-old Carol McMillan, a woman who, in everyone's eyes, embodied kindness and warmth. Carol possessed a radiant smile, always present on her lips whenever she chatted with neighbors or participated in charitable activities at the local church. She was a family-oriented woman, always dedicating her heart and soul to caring for her small home and readily extending a helping hand to anyone in need. Her sudden passing was not only a great shock to her family, but also left a vast void in the hearts of the local community, who had grown accustomed to the image of this diligent and benevolent woman. The McMillan family lived in a charming two-story house, shaded by lush green trees on a quiet street in Shaker Heights. That house was once the dream of many, with architecture blending classic and modern styles, exuding warmth and prosperity. Inside, Mrs. Carroll had skillfully decorated every corner, hanging numerous happy family photos, capturing memorable moments of its members. Her kitchen, considered the heart of the home, always carried the enticing aroma of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. These were the famous cookies Carol often made herself to share with colleagues and close neighbors, as a way to spread simple joy every day. Carol's husband was Daniel McMillan, a 32-year-old man, 16 years younger than his wife. Despite the significant age gap, they always appeared to everyone as a perfect and happy couple. Daniel worked at a large health insurance company. His job was busy, but he always tried to make time for his wife. In the eyes of outsiders, Daniel was an exemplary husband, handsome, successful, and utterly devoted to his wife. Their marriage had lasted for 5 years, 5 years that seemed to be filled only with sweetness and promises of a fulfilling future. No one could see the cracks quietly spreading beneath that glamorous facade. Living with the couple was Sarah Levinsky McMillan, Carol's 19-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Sarah was a beautiful, intelligent, and vibrant young woman. She was an excellent student at a prestigious medical university, harboring the dream of becoming a doctor to save lives. The relationship between Sarah and her mother was extremely close. Carol always considered her daughter the greatest pride of her life and supported her in every decision. Sarah also held her stepfather Daniel in high regard, always seeing him as a great friend, a trustworthy second father. It was this seemingly strong bond among the three of them that made the impending tragedy all the more devastating and painful. In the days leading up to the tragedy, Carol was living in a state of immense excitement and anticipation. She was busily preparing for the family's upcoming trip to Orlando, a journey she had long awaited. Carol had bought new clothes, packed sunscreen, and meticulously planned each day of their vacation. She yearned to enjoy the fresh air with her husband and daughter, bask in the brilliant golden sunlight, and temporarily forget the worries of daily life. Her joy was evident on her face whenever she spoke of the trip, but ironically, cruel fate did not grant her the opportunity to fulfill that simple dream. On the morning of April 17, 2019, the sky over Shaker Heights was gloomy and chilly, a typical bleak spring weather for Ohio. The neighborhood was still in a late slumber, with only a few people walking their dogs. Carol, who usually woke early to prepare breakfast, was unusually absent today. The kitchen was chillingly cold and silent. Around 8:30 a.m., Sarah came downstairs, intending to find something to eat before starting her day of studies. But as soon as she stepped into the kitchen, the young woman froze. A horrifying sight met her eyes, making her heart feel as if it had stopped. Her mother lay motionless on the cold floor. Beside Carol's body lay an overturned can of Diet Pepsi. its dark brown liquid spilling across the floor, seeping into the tile cracks like spreading bloodstains. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, her eyes wide with horror, unable to believe what she was seeing. She rushed to her mother's side, shaking her desperately, but received only deadly silence in return. Carol's body was already cold. Overwhelmed by panic, Sarah screamed, her cry tearing through the house's stillness. With trembling hands, she managed to dial emergency services, her voice breaking amidst choked sobs, pleading for help from the other end of the line. Just a few minutes later, the wail of an ambulance siren pierced the morning mist, signaling an ill omen. Paramedics quickly arrived at the scene, carrying faint hope that they might salvage the situation. They rushed into the house where Sarah sat on the floor, her face drenched in tears, her eyes vacant as she stared at her mother. However, all efforts were too late. After thoroughly checking vital signs, the doctor shook his head and announced Carol had already passed away. The devastating news struck like lightning, and Sarah collapsed, her mournful cries echoing throughout the large house, causing anyone who heard them to feel profound. While the paramedics were clearing the scene, Sarah tried to compose herself enough to call Daniel, her stepfather. At this time, Daniel was at work, starting a normal day. Over the phone, Sarah tearfully delivered the grim news. On the other end, Daniel let out a cry of pain and then burst into sobs. He repeatedly reassured Sarah, promising to drop everything and rush home immediately. Daniel's reaction sounded very distressed and shocked, like any husband who had just lost his beloved wife. But could there be another truth hidden behind those tears? Shaker Heights Town Police quickly arrived to cordon off the scene and begin their investigation. Leading the homicide team was Detective Laura Robotek, a seasoned female officer with over 15 years of experience. She was known for her sharp intuition and ability to discern the smallest details that others often overlooked. Upon entering the McMillan family home, Laura's first feeling was unease. Everything in the house was too tidy, too clean, completely contrary to the scene of a typical murder. There were no signs of struggle, no disturbed furniture, only the woman's body lying there, solitary and cold. Detective Laura began meticulously observing every corner of the kitchen. She noticed the victim's purse still on the kitchen counter, with money and identification documents untouched. The back door and windows were all securely locked from the inside, with no signs of forced entry or illegal break-in. This immediately ruled out the hypothesis of a robbery leading to murder. The perpetrator could be an acquaintance, or the victim might have died suddenly due to health reasons. However, Laura's intuition told her that this was not a natural death. Something was amiss, a misplaced piece in the perfect picture of this home. The detective's gaze stopped at the Diet Pepsi can lying next to Carol's body. There was still a significant amount of liquid in the can, with only a small amount spilled on the floor. This was the victim's favorite drink, a seemingly harmless detail that made Laura ponder. Why did she die right as she was drinking? The victim's posture when she fell was also very strange, not like someone suffering a sudden heart attack. She instructed the crime scene investigation team to collect this soda can as crucial evidence, and also to take samples of the spilled liquid on the floor for analysis, a wise decision that would later change the entire course of the case. While awaiting the autopsy results to determine the cause of death, police continued to search the house for more clues. They collected Carol's phone, computer, and personal belongings to check her communication history. Detective Laura believed that the answer to this mysterious death lay in the relationships surrounding the victim. She began to pose suspicious questions. Did Carol have any enemies? Did someone want her dead? Or was this a cleverly concealed family tragedy? Suspicions began to ignite, and the first target to fall under police scrutiny was the younger husband, Daniel McMillan. Daniel returned home with a dazed expression, his eyes red as if he had just experienced a great shock. However, when confronted with Detective Laura's questions, his demeanor changed strangely. Daniel appeared eerily calm, answering questions clearly, but lacking the genuine emotion of a man who had just lost his wife. He claimed he had left for work early and had no idea what had happened at home until he received Sarah's call. When asked about their marital status, Daniel affirmed that they were still happy, despite a slight distance recently due to his busy work schedule. Daniel's calmness to the point of apathy made Detective Laura suspicious. A loving husband would not be able to maintain such a nonchalant attitude when seeing his wife's body being removed from the house. Furthermore, Daniel's answers about his wife's daily habits were very vague. He knew his wife liked to drink Diet Pepsi, but couldn't recall the last time they confided in each other or were intimate. Daniel claimed to be a modern husband who respected his wife's freedom, but in reality, it seemed more like indifference and carelessness. Could there be a darker side hidden behind the facade of the perfect husband? The deeper police delved into Daniel's private life, the more irregularities they uncovered. Friends of the couple revealed that for about a year, Daniel had frequently been absent from home, citing business trips or late work. The relationship between him and Carol had long grown cold. They were living together in name only. A hypothesis emerged. Did Daniel have another woman outside their marriage? And to be free to be with his lover, did he plan to eliminate his older wife who stood in his way? This was not a new scenario in family murders, but to prove it, the police needed more than mere speculation. Next, the police proceeded to take Sarah's statement, the victim's daughter. The young woman was still in shock, continuously sobbing as she recalled the horrifying moment that morning. Sarah recounted that at the time her mother met with the accident, she was in her private room upstairs, wearing headphones and focusing on studying for an important upcoming exam. She heard no unusual sounds until she came down to the kitchen. Sarah's testimony was consistent and matched the evidence at the scene. Police also checked her social media activities and phone, all of which showed Sarah to be an exemplary student with a clean private life and no motive for the crime. When asked about her relationship with her stepfather, Sarah spoke highly of Daniel. She considered him a father figure, a close friend who always listened and shared. Sarah had absolutely no inkling of any unusual signs from Daniel, nor was she aware of the cracks in her mother's marriage. Sarah's innocence and absolute trust in her stepfather made the investigators feel sorrowful. The poor girl had no idea that the very person she respected might be hiding horrifying secrets related to her mother's death. And more dangerously, she might be the underlying cause of this tragedy. As the investigation into the family's relationships expanded, another name emerged: Jessica Miller. Jessica was Carol's best friend. They had been close for over a decade, like sisters. Jessica frequently visited the McMillan home, cooking, shopping, and sharing all of life's joys and sorrows with Carol. However, when police approached Jessica, they noticed clear awkwardness and anxiety on the woman's face. Through professional investigative techniques, the police uncovered a shocking secret. Jessica and Daniel, her best friend's husband, had been having a clandestine affair behind Carol's back. In the interrogation room, faced with irrefutable evidence, Jessica had to bow her head and admit to this sinful, clandestine affair. She confessed that she and Daniel had started seeing each other about a year prior, after a barbecue at their home. Jessica cried, expressing remorse for betraying her closest friend, but insisted she had no involvement in Carol's death. She stated that on the morning of the crime, she was showing houses to clients in another area, dozens of kilometers away from the crime scene. Police verified and confirmed Jessica's alibi as completely accurate. However, Jessica provided the police with extremely valuable information. She revealed that Daniel had recently seemed distant from her and had hinted that he was falling for another woman. Jessica was deeply hurt and jealous, suspecting that this person was much younger than herself. This detail immediately made the detectives ponder. If Daniel was tired of his wife and no longer keen on his mistress, then who was this mysterious third person? His motive for the crime might not merely be to escape a tedious marriage, but also due to some unrevealed perverse desire. On April 27th, 10 days after Carol's death, the forensic examination results from the laboratory were finally released, bringing a shocking turning point to the entire case. Experts confirmed that Carol McMillan's cause of death was cyanide poisoning. This deadly poison was found in high concentrations in the victim's stomach, and notably, it was also present in the Diet Pepsi can she had consumed. This conclusion completely refuted the hypothesis of a natural death. This was precisely a premeditated murder, meticulously planned and cruelly executed. The information about cyanide poisoning sent shivers down the spines of the entire investigation team. This was an extremely potent, rare poison, usually only appearing in detective novels or espionage cases. The use of cyanide indicated that the perpetrator was not an impulsive killer, but someone with knowledge, preparation, and a resolute determination to murder. He had chosen a swift, cruel, and difficult-to-detect method of execution without thorough examination. The question now was, who had access to this deadly poison and the audacity to use it to poison an innocent woman right in her? All suspicions immediately converged on Daniel McMillan. Police conducted an emergency search of Daniel's workplace and electronic devices. This time, they showed no deference or hesitation. And as expected, Pandora's box was opened. The internet access history on Daniel's personal computer revealed everything. Detectives found numerous search terms related to cyanide, colorless, odorless poison, how to buy cyanide online, and lethal dosage. These searches had been done several months before the crime occurred, indicating a long-term and chillingly cold-blooded preparation. Not stopping at information searches, police also traced Daniel's poison purchase transaction on a dark website. He had ordered a small amount of cyanide and requested it be sent to an intermediary address to avoid detection. Daniel's plan was terrifyingly perfect. He knew his wife's habits, knowing she would drink Diet Pepsi whenever she returned from work or after doing housework. He secretly put the poison into the soda can, turning his wife's favorite drink into a poisoned chalice to send her to the other side, all while playing the role of a grieving and innocent. But what was the true motive behind this cruel act? Why did Daniel want to kill his wife at all costs? The answer gradually unfolded, and it was even more horrifying than infidelity. From seized messages and personal diaries, police discovered that Daniel harbored a perverse obsession with Sarah, his wife's daughter from a previous relationship. He not only saw Sarah as a daughter, but also developed dark, lustful desires. Carol, his wife, who was 16 years older, had become the biggest obstacle preventing him from approaching Sarah. To satisfy his depraved desires, he decided to eliminate that stumbling block, paving the way for a sick future he envisioned for himself. On the day the arrest warrant was executed, Daniel was sitting in his office, maintaining the dignified appearance of a diligent employee. When police stormed in and read the warrant, his face changed color, and his long-held false composure completely crumbled. Daniel was handcuffed and led away to the astonishment of his colleagues. At the police station, faced with irrefutable evidence of his search history, poison purchase transactions, and motive for the crime, Daniel could not deny it. He bowed his head and pleaded guilty, admitting to killing his wife, but still attempting to rationalize his obsession with Sarah, calling it true love. News of Daniel McMillan's arrest for poisoning his wife with cyanide sent shockwaves throughout Shaker Heights and spread across Ohio. Neighbors who had once admired the couple were now stunned, unable to believe their ears. Daniel's image as a young, talented, and loving husband vanished, replaced by the portrait of a demon in human guise, a cold-blooded killer willing to harm his own spouse for base desires. The case became a sensational topic of discussion, exposing the dark underside hidden behind the closed doors of the middle class. For Sarah, this truth was a devastating blow. The young woman had just lost her mother, and now she had to face the fact that the stepfather she respected was her mother's killer. And even more horrifying, he did it because he wanted to possess her. Sarah's world completely collapsed. She fell into a severe psychological crisis, having to suspend her studies and retreat into seclusion, away from public scrutiny. This pain was too immense for a girl of only 19, like a deep scar that would haunt her for the rest of her life, reminding her of the cruelty of the human heart. Daniel McMillan's trial, held the following January, attracted significant media and public attention. Prosecutor James Lickey, with sharp arguments and a solid body of evidence, exposed Daniel's true face in court. He described the defendant's actions as cruel, calculated, and inhuman. Details of Daniel planning to poison his wife, deceiving his mistress, and harboring dark intentions toward his stepdaughter enraged the entire courtroom. The defense attorney attempted to cite work pressure and psychological instability as reasons for leniency, but all proved meaningless in the face of the naked truth. After many days of intense trial, the jury did not take long to deliver its final verdict. Daniel McMillan was convicted of first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances, including the use of poison and a depraved motive. He received a sentence of life imprisonment without parole. When the verdict was announced, Daniel stood with his head bowed, not daring to look towards the victim's family. Justice had been served. The perpetrator would pay for his crimes with the rest of his life behind prison bars, where belated regret would gnaw him every day. The case closed, but the pain it left behind lingered, persistent and haunting. The McMillan family was shattered. Sarah had to strive daily to heal her emotional wounds and regain faith in life. Jessica Miller, the best friend and also the mistress, had to leave town, carrying with her a sense of guilt and shame. Shaker Heights gradually returned to its usual tranquility, but the story of the young husband poisons older wife case is still recounted as a cautionary tale about the cruelty of desire and betrayal, about the devil that can hide among our dearest loved ones without us ever knowing. That is the entire tragic story of the McMillan family, a heartbreaking testament that sometimes true danger doesn't come from strangers in the dark, but from the very people who lie beside us every night. I hope this story has brought you moments of suspense and profound reflections on human nature.